Respected session chair, distinguished industry leaders, my fellow speaker, and dear delegates. Wish you all a very good afternoon, and I will just like to share the challenges that we have faced in executing deep water projects in the Indian eastern coast offshore. So just with a bit of background, McDermott, we have been involved in one form or the other in all the deep water projects that's happened in the offshore East Coast since the last 15 years, started with 2008. So what I'm going to do now is I will run through some of the recent projects that we have done in the East Coast of India. I will take through the challenges that we have faced and what were the best practices that we deployed. And I think that will give a flavor of the challenges and the way to mitigate them and overcome them. Yeah, as I said, I will give a brief overview about some of these projects. Then we'll talk about the challenges. Then we'll talk about the execution excellence that was deployed, and eventually that led to the critical success factors. So in terms of overview, this is one of the ongoing projects, and it is very clear from this complex table that it's a massive effort in terms of the subsea infrastructure. I think Sashank did touch upon some of these in terms of the various components that's been involved in a typical SPS SURF project. So we had oil and gas system in this project, and there are quite a number of things starting from the Christmas tree, and it goes all the way to the umbilicals and flow lines and the risers and other infrastructure to bring the oil or gas to the facilities. This is another project that was already completed, and again, there were a range of pipeline sizes starting from 4 all the way to 18 inch. Then we had multiple diameter umbilicals that were installed. Then we had topside modification associated with this development. And we also had some unique features here, like we had 18 and 4-inch dual risers, which I will talk about. Then we had the complex pre-commissioning for this ultra deep water, which is like 2200 water depth, which is quite extraordinary for anywhere in the world. So I think we have given other aspects in terms of the vessel days, the assets that were operating cumulatively in the field, plus the cumulative lengths of pipelines and umbilicals, etc. So in terms of the scope challenges, I think first one is the water depth. So as I said, we had water depth ranging from anywhere between 1,100 all the way till 2,000, 2,200 meters. And we had the deepest pipeline installation that was ever performed in Asia. We had a J-mode plate installation using our installation vessel DLV 2000. And we have a very, very unique design. The first piggyback dual pipeline, 18-inch and 4-inch, and that's phenomenally difficult because it has to be done starting from the shallow water all the way till a 2,000 plus meter water depth, and that makes it very, very complex in terms of design and execution. And lastly, we had the long riser, 100 plus meter, and it was a dual riser installed on the platform, which is also unique in way of its design and its execution. In terms of execution challenges, I will touch upon some of the key things, not really go through item by item. The main thing is, one of the project which was awarded based on the pre-feed design. Again, it saves time because, you don't need to run through the separate tender for feed and the time frame for feed. But the caveat is that, the definition is not very watertight, and changes keep happening during the post-award stage, which is actually EPC stage. But you again go back to the drawing board, there are changes to the production profiles, etc. So that makes it very, very difficult for the contractor, the service provider, because you go like 4 steps forward and 2 steps backward. So that is something which is a feedback that we wanted to share here. Then I will not delve into the COVID pandemic because I think we have all been through that. That was extremely a difficult phase that we have to maneuver and move forward. that had also knock-on effects in terms of supply chain disruptions, crew mobilization to offshore, and I think the project got even more complicated by the COVID in short. The other key thing I want to touch upon is the East Coast, the construction season. Unlike West Coast, the East Coast, the construction season is very limited. It is just a 4-month construction season, Jan to April. Although, we have worked beyond the construction season for a few months, depending on the project schedule in terms of meeting the commitment. But the construction season limitation makes it more challenging. Then even in the construction season, we find that there is a high current in the sea, and that makes the execution for the marine operation even more challenging, and it is going to involve more assets in terms of maintaining the position, the station keeping, and the veining while the pipelay is being done. So I think that's part of the challenge, the currents that we encounter in this region, which is quite unique. The other things where, I think things like the Ukraine war that sort of exacerbated some of the problems we had, but the other key thing here, just one last thing I want to touch upon, is the change of law, because as a contractor, we only go with the law that we know on the day the contract is signed, but whether we like it or not, sometimes the changes in law that is thrust upon the contractor, and that makes it very, very difficult for the contractor to go back and comply with the new laws, and that is going to involve impact to the cost and schedule. So that is another key thing I wanted to touch upon as part of this slide. Okay, now we have spoken about the challenges in terms of execution excellence. The first thing I wanted to touch upon is the initiative of the Indian government and the Prime Minister. It's the Make in India initiative. So we are proud to tell that in the last 6 years we have done significant number of initiatives for Make in India. It starts from having a full capacity engineering office in Chennai, where we did bulk of the work in terms of design for the subsea, plus we have a full-fledged project management presence, plus we also had third-party yards that we used in Kakinada, and also with our consortium partner in Kattupalli. So that was a significant development where new things were done in this country for deep water and surf projects, which wasn't done before. And we had used Indian flag vessels, we had used lots of Indian service providers, and we gave them the expertise and they learnt with us, and that is going to be good for the country, because the next time there is going to be a surf project, then we don't need to have more of international service providers. We can try to maximize the experience that people have got that worked on these projects. Again, no project is successful without adhering to the good quality and safety records. So I will not go into the detail, but in terms of the recent project that's under execution, we have done almost 8.5-9 million manas LTA free, and that's a proud achievement. And the other key thing is, with so much of infrastructure to be done, we have our well repair rate of just about 0.5 to 0.54, which is actually much better than the industry average. So that shows the effort that has gone into in terms of execution, not only adhering to the schedule and the challenges, but also maintaining the quality and safety performance, without which the project will not be a success. The other excellence that I would like to highlight is we had a piggyback firing line on our installation vessel DLV 2000. That wasn't there previously, but we had to retrofit a bespoke design piggyback firing line because that was required on the project, because we had the 18-inch and 4-inch pipeline that was piggyback. And that was a big success because we could have better productivity, we could improve efficiency, we could improve the execution speed, and that had some challenges during the design stage, as I said. But I think the end of the day, it was a success, and it was a first of a kind in this region. Other than that, I think all the other paraphernalia that goes with the deep water design, we had to do all those things. and I'll talk about that in the subsequent slides. We had to fabricate our structures in our yard in Indonesia, and for the other project, we had to fabricate it in our consortium partner's yard in India. The deep water pre-commissioning is really a challenge, and we broke convention, and we came out with a CTO, coil tubing equipment spread, which actually simplified the deep water pipeline pre-commissioning. And that was quite unique because or else it would have been a very, very complex operation with more time and bigger spread, but this was actually introduced, which was quite unique, which resulted in saving to the time and also a better success. Part of that we had used the McDermott. Again, that was for the stuck pig scenario, so that was quite a success, and it proved that we can manage the deep water dewatering and pre-commissioning with a risk-free approach. The other challenging thing we did was we had to transport large umbilicals at Kakinada because we had some minimum bending radius, and we had to get the umbilicals from Europe on the carousel, and then we had to do the transpooling. The picture on the right, it shows the transpooling operation that was done in Kakinada before the umbilicals were installed on the seabed. So the other key thing is, we had this deep water success story is the first gas was monetized within a record 11 months, which is quite a remarkable achievement by all the team, all the service providers and the stakeholders working on the project. Then we had the deep water manifold where we had a handshake underwater, which is quite rare because we do tandem lifts and handshake for topside installation, but doing underwater handshake is quite unique, and a lot of design and planning went into this, and the risk assessment and such like, but eventually it was quite a success using the two vessels for the installation. The overall gas system, I think that's almost completed, and we have used a combination of S-lay, which is conventional method, and we also use reel lay because we have our spool base that we developed for this project. Again, that's one of the Make in India initiative. The first spool base was done in country, and that helped in the reel lay installation of these pipelines using our lay vessel. In the oil system, we had another challenge because we had to use a pipe-in-pipe system. Again, that's not something very common in the industry. It's been used in other places, but it's first in India, and it's very few projects we have done as McDermott. So that was quite a learning for us, but eventually it was done in a very successful manner, and we had to have a pipe with a layer of insulation and then another pipe. It's basically because of the oil pour point, we had to have this so that it doesn't really cool down the oil and make it, flow assurance a problem. So this was again part of the design, the pre-feed, which was further developed and executed during the EPC phase. Moving further, so these are the various marine vessels, in-house McDermott vessels plus vessels from the third party. So we had an overall of 75 marine spread, and it's all done in the last 3 years, and almost 6,000 to 7,000 people were mobilized, and this was like in the 3 pandemic years to bring people on board, and executing this, it was no mean task. I will not touch upon this too much because we know that COVID was a very tricky thing that happened, but we did have a lot of learnings, and we never gave up. I think the people were very resilient, and they persevered and got the job done despite all odds that was faced due to the pandemic. So in summary, I think the success factor is have a one team approach, so you don't differentiate between the customer, the contractor, subcontractor, vendor, service provider. So we all get together, and that's how the success was achieved. Then, as I said, the excellence in QHSE, you don't compromise and take shortcuts because eventually it's going to come and bite us later on. And planning and execution, that's key. Like Shashank said, even a small error can actually lead to large downtime, and it can actually play spoil sport. Then I think alignment and interfaces, that was key, and having the lessons learned not only from the contractor, from all the stakeholders across the industry, the lessons learned were applied to make the project successful. So I think this, in a nutshell, it presents the experiences of McDermott and the recent projects that we have done for the East Coast Deepwater. So thanks very much for the opportunity once again. Thank you, sir.